Runaway. The blue light of the screen was a betrayal. It illuminated the cramped space of my apartment, casting a faint, sickly glow on the walls, but it felt like a spotlight trained on my mind. Every pixel seemed to hum with the weight of unseen expectations, a silent judgment on the late hour and the tasks still undone. Outside, the city was a quiet murmur, but inside, the only sound was the whir of the laptop fan, a mechanical sigh that mirrored my own exhaustion. The glow distorted the familiar posters on my wall, turning vibrant art into muted shadows, just as it seemed to distort my own sense of time and reality. The question hung in the air, echoing the blue light's intrusive gaze. How do I get myself out of this horrible spiral of life that I've found myself in? It wasn't a whisper, but a scream trapped in the confines of my skull. The screen offered no answers, just more distractions, more endless feeds of other people's curated perfections, amplifying the feeling of my own descent. My reflection, barely visible in the dark glass of the window behind the screen, looked back with tired eyes, a stranger shrouded in the electric haze. It was a face that understood the weight of the spiral, the slow, relentless pull downwards, and the desperate yearning for a way out. I got up from my desk, grabbed the keys to go for a brisk walk that turned into a run to get away, to sort my thoughts. The biting night air, initially a shock, soon became a bracing companion as I ran, the rhythm of my steps a desperate drum against the pavement. The glow of my phone, usually a comfort, now felt like a brand. It was then, amidst the fading streetlights and the looming shadows, that a chilling realization truly hit me. It wasn't about friendship with my newest social media followers. It was about consumption. My newer friends and followers weren't there to genuinely connect, but to feast on the scraps of my life, hungry for the latest update, the rawest emotion, the next piece of my story to dissect and discuss. I saw it all with stark clarity now. The eager comments, the private messages disguised as concern, all thinly veiled attempts to pick my mind, to extract information, to fuel the very narrative that had become my trauma. And worse, the insidious undercurrent of those who didn't just want the story for free, but had intentions to add to it, to intensify the drama, to reshape my pain into a more sensational spectacle for their own entertainment. The thought sent a fresh wave of nausea through me, and I ran harder, desperate to outpace the insidious reach of their collective gaze. The glowing phone in my hand, once a lifeline, now felt like a burden, a conduit for the very forces I was trying to escape. I clutched it, not out of habit, but out of a desperate, fleeting thought: delete it all. But the thought felt too big, too final, too terrifying. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic rhythm that matched the pace of my feet. I was running not just from the apartment or the screen, but from the invisible threads that bound me to a digital audience, an audience that fed on her vulnerability. The cold air filled my lungs, a painful reminder that this was real, that my trauma wasn't just pixels and comments, but a gaping wound that bled into my actual life. Each stride was a desperate attempt to outrun the phantom voices, the imagined whispers of judgment, and the ravenous hunger for more. I wasn't just clearing my mind, I was fighting for its very sanity. The truth, sharp and unforgiving, was that the digital drama, the relentless scrutiny, intertwined with my bipolarism, created a tempest in my mind. It was more than I wanted to bear, a constant battle against internal and external forces. Yet in a twisted, perverse way, it was also what kept me alive. The constant need to analyze, to process, to sometimes even perform for my audience, provided a perverse structure, a distraction from the deeper, more terrifying void. But now, even that dark coping mechanism had turned on me. The run became more desperate, a fervent plea from my soul for respite. I didn't need solutions. I needed a sanctuary, a place where the blue light couldn't penetrate, where the whispers couldn't reach, a safe space away from it all, where my mind could simply exist without being picked apart or put on display. The silence of the shelter was absolute, or so I had thought. For 2 days, I had lived by candlelight, my world reduced to the rough texture of the brick bed frame and the scribbled ink in my notebook. I had mapped out every debt, every fractured relationship, and every defensive move to keep my family out of the crosshairs of public collapse. I was a ghost, finally untethered from the digital world, until the floor vibrated. The sound was a sharp, clinical ping that felt like a needle to my eardrum. On the dusty concrete floor, my phone, which I had powered down 48 hours ago, glowed with a malevolent neon intensity. The screen hadn't just turned on, It had bypassed my security entirely. The message on the screen was short, but it shattered the sanctuary of the stone walls. Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. We're always with you. The chip remembers. A cold, electric itch flared at the base of my skull. It wasn't just a metaphor for my bipolarism anymore. It was a physical realization. The mind-picking my followers did was just the surface. Beneath the skin, a silent piece of hardware was broadcasting my location, my heart rate, and my very thoughts back to the grid I thought I'd escaped. The shelter wasn't a hideaway, it was a tomb with a signal. The walls seemed to pulse with the same sickly blue light as my screen. I realized then that the horrible spiral wasn't something I had fallen into. It was something that had been built around me, one connection at a time.